You are now listening to the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast.
Wait, the answer was add 10 gallons?
Add 10 gallons.
My first thought was we got to put Actigel in there.
Yeah, great.
Truck's on the way. On the way.
Yeah, okay. I've got two observations, neither of which are really educated or well thought out. Which are like most of my observations are.
There aren't a lot of problems on a job site that can't be solved with a sack full of biscuits.
Today's episode of the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast is brought to you by Actigel 208. Actigel 208 is a high-performance additive for the concrete industry that is greatly beneficial to the producer. It enables them to increase the percentage of manufactured sand by up to 100% and completely replace all the natural sand in the mix. In areas where natural sand is scarce, inconsistent, and expensive, this provides a huge benefit to any ready-mix company out there. Benefits of manufactured sand and concrete include consistent air content, improved compaction, and increased density. Now, in the past, the downside of using manufactured sands was that they were hard to pump, hard to place, and hard to finish. Well, Actigel 208 solves all those issues. By improving suspension, stability, and the quality of the cement paste in the mix, Actigel overcomes the old issues with manufactured sand and leaves them behind. Let Actigel 208 improve the quality of your mix while saving money on every yard you produce. For more information, visit us at actigel.com. That's ACTI-GEL.com.
Welcome in, everybody, to the fourth quarantine update here on the Add 2 Weeks Quarantine Podcast. We appreciate you being with us, and we're still here. We haven't been hauled off yet. Paul, how's it going?
Waiting to get hauled off. What are you doing?
I feel pretty good about my chances. I didn't have to leave the hotel for my medical emergency or for a medical emergency. And the nice lady that showed up at my door this morning to make sure I was still here didn't seem to have any issues. But it was a short conversation, and that's the way I like it. How'd your conversation go?
Well, the Federales that showed up today from La Garda in Montreal, she already knew I'd left. All right. They have an app. We've talked about it before on here, but they got this app that they're tracking us in the country. We know it. They told us ahead of time, like, hey, we're tracking you. We're going to call you, and you got to sign in every day, and we're going to come visit you. Like, we knew this was going to happen. And she was like, how are you getting your groceries? How are you getting your food? Same thing she probably asked you. Is there anybody else in your room? All this stuff. And no. And the last question she asked, said for last, she was like, have you left your room for any reason? And I was like, yeah, I had a dental emergency. I had to leave and get it fixed, and I came right back. She didn't even flinch, didn't even blink, nothing. She was like, okay, I'm going to have to put that in my notes, and the Ministry of Public Health will be in touch. And I was like, man, she already knew. If she was testing me, bro. She was testing me, see if I was going to lie to her. She told me she was going to put it in her notes. She didn't write nothing down. She just closed her book and walked off. Like, there was no notes. It was already in the notes.
Yeah, no, they knew. And I tell you what, good on you. Good on you for being proactive, because you even said where this dental office was, it was in a shopping center, and there was like convenience stores and stuff like that. And you had this interest to like walk around and see what was up and, enjoy your freedom while you're outside the gates. Right. And you're like, no, I know they're tracking me. I better get back as soon as I can. And you did. And I mean, thankfully you did, because if you would have spent half the day out, I think the conversation this morning would have went a little differently.
Yes, right. And so for those who aren't aware, the Quarantine Act says you can't leave for any reason except a medical emergency. And if you leave for unauthorized reasons, you get massive fines. And if you spread COVID while you're out without permission, you can fine up to $1 million. So I was out for the medical emergency, and I came, like Josh said, man, I came right back. And it was tempting to like want to walk around, but no, man, I got in, got out, got back. We know they're monitoring us. That lady confirmed it today. They're monitoring, and we'll see, man. I offered her like paperwork and stuff. I was like, yeah, I left and I had to come back, but I got receipts. I got business cards, like whatever you need, I got it. And she was like, no, you're going to need that for the next person that comes by.
Yeah, you can go on and hold on to that. I don't need it, but someone else will. Yeah, and it's crazy, man, because some countries, even our own, I mean, they have rules and regulations and mandates, but very rarely does someone actually follow up on that kind of stuff. Like we say you need to quarantine for 10 days, but ain't nobody checking up on you, especially if you're a national. But they ain't about that life up here in Canada. They are about checking up and seeing where you're at. They're about looking at your papers. They're about following through on what they say they're going to do, which, I mean, I don't like the rules, but I kind of respect the fact that they actually enforce their rules, because in some countries, even our own, in some cases, you kind of listen to these rules and regulations and you kind of scoff, be like, ain't no way they're going to check up on that.
Yeah, there was one because we live in the Mid-Atlantic, but for those who aren't familiar with the area, it's very common to travel between Maryland and Pennsylvania. If you're in Pennsylvania, it's real common to go to New Jersey and New York. And there was a time when there was a 14-day quarantine if you went outside of the state of New York or New Jersey and tried to come back. And there was nobody monitoring that at all.
No.
Everybody was doing whatever they wanted. Nobody listened to that rule. Now, I didn't go to New York, New Jersey during that time, so don't look at me. I'm just telling you what I heard on the streets, all right? But we do know that they were tracking people who were like on flights when you weren't supposed to be. And that actually got Joey Bell last summer working on a job. You and me had to go take care of it up in Chicago because they were tracking Joey's flight. People from Tennessee weren't allowed in the city of Chicago for a while.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I remember that now. I don't know if our visits today signified this or not, but we are, in fact, halfway there. We're halfway through our quarantine here. We had to take the self-administered coronavirus test under the watchful eye of a certified nurse, I'm sure, over video conference. So someone sat there and timed me swabbing the inside of my nose for 15 seconds twice. We're going to ship our test out, and if that thing comes back negative, we're up to the Arctic Circle just as fast as we can.
Yeah, when I logged into that, it said there are 338 people ahead of you in line.
Yeah, it told me like 290 or something like that. It's like the wait time can vary anywhere between 10 minutes and 2 hours.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And then I think 15 seconds later, some lady popped up and was like, you ready to rock and roll? I'm like, I'm ready to rock and roll. And she wasn't taking any prisoners. Like, I mean, we're not like total idiots, so we can follow instructions. I can't imagine how frustrating it must be to have that lady's job.
Yeah, no, that's true. The lady in my particular circumstance, she ran through it pretty quickly as well. Like I already had the test kit out and I read the directions before I even logged onto the call, but I had everything within my reach, and she was just like, all right, you need this, 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 and this. Show them to me. And I did. And then we got on with it. But yeah, she was not getting paid. It was like she was getting paid per patient, not by the hour. She was about running through those cases and getting you in and out of there as fast as possible.
Exactly. I didn't even open mine up until I made the phone call. They had the website on the outside of the box, and I was like, yeah, it's the same thing. It just ran right through it. I mean, she was not messing around. We was in and out of that thing in like 3 minutes, and she was gone. But hey, she had 338 other people to deal with probably.
But I do appreciate the fact that we only had to swab the inside of our nose and I didn't have to touch my brain again this time, because the test we took initially, I took it in the drive-thru at the CVS pharmacy close to where I live. That was the test that we needed to leave the country and get into Canada. That joker touched my brain, and I'd be perfectly fine if I never had to do that again.
Really? So did a nurse do it for you?
No, I did it in the driver's seat of my truck in the drive-thru of the CVS pharmacy. I took this test, and the instructions read, insert into your nostril until the stop line. And the stop line was like a red little line. It was just about the part where you break the Q-tip off, where the remaining part goes into the tube. The stop line was like right before that. And it was in there. It drew tears.
I mean, just the regular one's kind of uncomfortable. The whole 15 seconds in each nostril rolling around. It's the one I had in the CVS drive-thru was the exact same thing that we did today on camera with that nurse here in Canada. It was the exact same thing. Break it off, everything.
And I got gypped. Oof.
You got gypped, but I would take brain poking over an impending visit from the Ministry of Public Health.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, I can't imagine that'd be a great conversation. Like, what would you do, bro? What would you do if a crown popped off? You can't breathe without being in pain. What would you do? Like, I wore a mask. I went there. I came right back.
Mhm.
Like, give me a break, man. I think you'll be fine. I think.
Can't wait for this conversation, and we'll report back here on the pod when we get that. But I think it goes into a deeper discussion. If we have just a moment, I'd like to touch on something a little bit personal, and that is the Findlay name is cursed. There is there is a Findlay curse out there, and you and Joey know a little bit of the Findlay curse, because if something can go wrong, it does go wrong in extreme travel situations. It always has for me. It doesn't matter what it is. Uh, it repeatedly happens over and over. So I knew that coming here with this extreme travel situation, that something was going to go wrong for me, and it did.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I got nothing for you, man. That all I can do is solidify your claims and let the people know that this isn't just theatrics. There actually is a Findlay curse, especially as it pertains to traveling. If there was any stats being taken between Joey, myself, and Paul, and we look at the total number of plane flights taken versus the total number of delays that we had to endure, Paul's got to be winning. He's probably batting 400. Like, him and Mike Trout probably have the same batting average right now. Like, Paul leads the league for sure.
You're the first person to ever compare me to Mike Trout.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's a small consolation prize to being delayed on half the flights you take.
I'm gonna dig back through. I'm gonna try and find some of the more extreme examples of the Findlay curse, so that when we come back on here for our next quarantine update, you guys will, assuming I'm not hauled off to COVID detention centers for going out and having a medical emergency, then we'll come back with I'll regale you with the audience with stories of the Findlay travel curse, and maybe our audience can send in some of their wild stories, and we can mention them. We can compare. We can swap some war stories here on the air.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, if I'm coming to you guys solo for quarantine update number 5, you already know what's happening. And I'll let you know about the whereabouts of Paul if I know myself. But if we both come back to you on quarantine update number 5, that means we're going to be delving into more detail about the Findlay curse, maybe talking about the war stories of some listeners, because you always think you got it bad until someone else comes and tells you about something they've had to endure.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard some from our mentors and the people that come before us about some crazy stuff they had to deal with in Korea and the Indonesia, some places that are just rough. So we might have to get Joey Bell on here for the war stories segment.
Yeah. All right. Well, yep. That's what you can look forward to, ladies and gentlemen. For the next update, we'll have at least 2 people on here talking. It'll be Joey, myself, and maybe Paul. Hopefully Paul. But that's what you get to look forward to on update number 5. But for this particular update, we appreciated the opportunity to talk with you. Thank you so much for listening with us. Make sure you go and listen to the regular episode 17 with Colin Lobo from the NRMCA. That just dropped a couple days ago. That's a great interview. And if you're any way a part of the concrete industry, you've been influenced by the NRMCA in one way, shape, or form. And Colin talks about their vast reach, and he's definitely an interesting guy. And I said it in the podcast, he might be the smartest person we'll ever have on the podcast. So it was awesome to learn some stuff from him for sure. But that'll do it for now. We'll see you guys next time.